There are roads in the Philippines that carry a weight far heavier than modern concrete. Paths where history didn't just happen, it left a scar. The old folks say that if you walk certain provincial routes late at night, especially during the humid rainy season, you might hear a sound that doesn't belong in the modern world. The rhythmic, heavy trudge of thousands of weary boots, marching in perfect ghostly unison. Because some historical journeys were so brutal, the souls who walked them are still trying to find their way home. I'm an expat living out in the provinces, and you're watching The Walking Expat, Philippine Mysteries. Adjusting to life in the provinces means learning to listen to the quiet history of the land. Amidst the beautiful landscapes, there are reminders of the fierce battles fought during World War II. The most tragic of these was the Great Death March, where thousands of captured Filipino and American soldiers were forced to walk under a blistering sun, pushing through sheer exhaustion and heartbreak. This is the story of an expat named Alan, a military history buff who rented a quiet house near one of the old historical transit routes, only to find out that the past doesn't always stay in the history books. Sometimes, it repeats itself right outside your front gate. Alan had specifically chosen his countryside home for its peace and proximity to historical trails. He spent his afternoons walking the old provincial roads, imagining what the landscape looked like decades ago. The road directly in front of his property was an old, unpaved stretch of gravel and dirt that connected two small barrios, lined with tall, whispering bamboo and old mango trees. For the first month, it was incredibly peaceful. But as the dark, heavy clouds of the monsoon season rolled in, the nights became thick with an eerie, low-lying fog that crawled off the nearby hills. It started on a Thursday night, right around 2 a.m. Alan was wide awake, reading a book, when he heard a faint, distant sound drifting from the road. It wasn't the usual engine of a late-night tricycle or the barking of village dogs. It was a rhythmic, crunching sound. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The unmistakable sound of hundreds of heavy boots marching steadily over the gravel road. Fearing a group of trespassers or a late-night local security patrol, Alan walked to his front porch. The night air was freezing cold, thick with a milky white fog that reduced visibility to just a few yards. He clicked on his flashlight and shone the beam toward his bamboo front gate. The crunching sound grew louder, vibrating slightly through the ground beneath his feet. But as the source of the noise drew level with his gate, Alan's breath caught in his throat. Emerging from the thick mist was a column of men, marching 4 abreast. They wore tattered, mud-stained olive-drab uniforms from the 1940s. Some wore dented steel helmets, while others had dirty bandages wrapped around their heads. Their faces were hollow, gaunt, and completely pale. Filipino and American soldiers walked side by side. They didn't speak. They didn't look at Alan's bright flashlight. They simply stared straight ahead, their eyes wide and empty, carrying wounded comrades on makeshift canvas stretchers. Despite the heavy, thunderous sound of their boots crunching on the gravel, they didn't leave a single footprint in the soft, damp mud. Alan stood frozen on his porch, a wave of profound sorrow and cold dread washing over him. He realized he wasn't looking at a living group of reenactors. He was witnessing a phantom echo of the Great March. The sheer spiritual weight of the procession was suffocating, holding him paralyzed as the ghostly battalion moved past his property line. Near the back of the column, a young Filipino soldier, looking no older than 18, momentarily stumbled. His spectral hand reached out toward Alan's gate for support, and an old, dented metal army canteen slipped from his belt, falling silently into the grass. The young soldier didn't stop. He simply regained his footing and vanished with the rest of the column into the thick midnight fog. The moment the last soldier disappeared, the heavy crunching sound stopped instantly. The normal sounds of the provincial night, the crickets and the distant frogs, returned all at once. The next morning, as soon as the sun broke through the clouds, Alan rushed out to his front gate. The grass where the ghostly column had marched was completely undisturbed. But right where the young soldier had stumbled, sitting neatly in the green grass, was a real, heavily oxidized, rusted metal World War II army canteen. Alan picked it up with shaking hands. It was covered in decades of dirt and rust, a physical piece of history left behind by a phantom. He cleaned the canteen gently and placed it on a shelf in his living room, alongside a small candle as a sign of respect and remembrance. That night, and every night after, the road was perfectly silent. The marching stopped. It was as if the spirits simply wanted their sacrifice to be acknowledged, to know that they were finally seen. Expat life in the Philippines connects you to a deep, resilient culture that has survived incredible hardships. Alan still takes his daily walks down that provincial road, but now he steps with a sense of profound reverence. Because out here, the roads don't just lead to the next town. They carry the memory of heroes who are still marching silently through the mist.